What is going on, hustlers? Back to you guys with another video. As you can see by the slideshow presentation, how I built my business in 22 days. Now, before we get into that, I want to say thank you guys for 700 subscribers. I think 1,000 is coming very, very soon. And my goal actually is by the end of April, I want to be at 2,000. Like, let's just go for it. Let's just send it. I've always been a guy that pushes the envelope anyways, and I think if I just keep making fire content for you guys and you guys just keep liking and sharing it, then I think we're gonna blow up and it's really gonna do numbers. But with that being said, also remember, once we get to 1K, I'm gonna actually go to the warehouse and show you guys how to package. So get me to 1K. But with that being said, we're going to be discussing how I built my business in 22 days. Now, this is not about how we built our government contracting business. This is exclusively about how I built my consulting and educational firm in 22 days, which is now bringing me in around 20K a month. Like last month I did 18, this month I did 20. So yeah, I'm saying that it's doing 20K a month for me. So I'm going to be super transparent, tell you guys exactly what I went through, where my head was at, everything that it took to get there, and all the steps that I took. So that way, if you're thinking about building a business or you were in, a similar position to me as you're watching this and you're thinking about something or you have an idea, kind of how to go after it and really how to budget your time. And then the things that I wish people told me, because there's a lot of stuff when you're building a business that you don't know. And you're obviously aware when you build your first real company. You're like, okay, obviously there are things that I don't have, there's a knowledge gap, but you don't know exactly where the gap is between what you currently know and then what it is that you don't know. So step one, part one, however you want to break it down. Number one, I came back from a trip heartbroken. Now, I've talked about this in a previous video. Go check that out, my journey to making 10K a month at 21, if you want to get more insightful details on that. But basically, I went on a trip with this girl, and our perception of how things went down on that trip were vastly different. And we're not currently on speaking terms, and part of the reason for that is because I published that video and I shared my perspective, which she strongly disagreed with. But without that heartbreak, without me feeling like absolute shit, this YouTube channel wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be employing for people. I would not have achieved all the stuff I've achieved. I wouldn't have done any podcasts. So looking back on it, that was something that I needed to go through. That was something that I needed to feel. I needed to feel that pain. I needed to feel that fire under my ass, because I think anybody will tell you that one of the most powerful feelings in the world is getting your heart broken. But I also think, especially as a man and then being a young man who's trying to find his way and create something for himself, that is one of the best like fire starters that you could have. But basically, we went on this trip, came back, and then we stopped seeing each other, and I felt absolutely gutted. So we went on a trip in like the middle of May. We were there for about 7-8 days. We come back and it's like mid-May, and then we end things like a week later, right? So at this point, it's like late May, early June, and I am just feeling like shit, right? I'm feeling like shit, and then about like 2 weeks transpires, and it's like mid to late June, and it's like June 18th, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to resort to drugs. I'm not going to resort to alcohol. I'm not going to resort to consuming adult content. I'm not going to resort to being lazy and eating my pain away. I was like, I am going to channel this energy into creating something, right? So then I was like, all right, how am I going to do this? So my birthday is July 11th. It's 7/11 day. And from the time that I started to when it was going to be my birthday, that was when I planned to launch the company and when I planned to launch the website and the course sales and our payment processor and everything. So what I did, I literally budgeted my time. So I was like, okay, there's 22 days. That's 528 hours. Out of 528 hours, 8 hours of sleep. So that's 176 hours. Then 8 hours of work ended up being 352 hours, or I'm sorry, 28 hours of work times 3. It was 3. Yeah. So I was left with 352 hours to work after sleeping. And then I was working about 28 hours a week at that time because I was still in school. So times 3, that was 84 hours in total. So then I was left with 268 hours. So then it was 10 hours of working out a week. So 2 hours of working out per day. And that put me at 30 hours, right? So at this point, I am now left with 238 hours. And then I commuted to work. So my my commute each way was about, it ended up being about like 6 hours per week. So I had 18 hours that I had to subtract. So I was left with 220 hours. And looking back on it, I had 22 days and I was left with 220 hours. And my birthday is July 11th. 11 times 2 is 22, or 220. So looking back on it, that was a sign from God, but I was just so heartbroken and filled with like bad feelings that I didn't even notice that. So I literally budgeted my time, right? Like, this is what you have to do. This is the level of obsessiveness that you have to have if you're trying to get to the point where you're making $250,000 a year at 21. And, also have a job with the best airline in the world, and also be an endurance runner, and also make content, and then also still bid on government contracts, and still be, a multi-million-dollar salesman. This is the level of minutia. This is the level of obsession that you have to have with your time. You have to understand exactly how every single minute is allocated. So I told myself I had 220 hours to play with from the time that I created this. And this was literally my lock screen. And I worked day and night tirelessly. I literally was like, if I'm not sleeping, working out, or driving my car to get to and from any of these places, I need to be working on this business for 22 days. So after that, I had budgeted my time, and then I determined the business model. So I decided, I was like, I had already been working with companies and consulting for them prior to this, but it wasn't like robust, and it wasn't concrete. It wasn't. I hadn't had like a plan of action or standard operating procedure. So I decided, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do consulting and create educational plans for people. I didn't want to just do course sales or just educational sales, but I also didn't want to just do consulting, because I was like, okay, I want some passive income, but I also like talking to people and helping them build their business. So I decided I was going to do all of that online, and it was going to be remote. So that was the first thing that I had done. I had determined my business model. And this actually, credit to my mom. I was busting my ass getting clients to pay for that trip that me and that girl went on together. And I was just feeling so burnt out right before I left. And then she was like, yeah, you need to be teaching people in a group setting. So then I also came up with the idea of, like, okay, every couple of months, I'm going to do a boot camp and teach people live in like a Zoom classroom. So that was my business model. Then I found a web developer. Shout out Noah, and he was a pilot as well. And he reached out to do some work for Two Lines Aerospace, but nothing ever happened. So then I called him and I was like, hey, listen, I'll pay you. Now, he gave me he gave me a quote, right? And thankfully I was making money, and I was making commission from government contracting itself. So I was able to give him some money up front, but I would have been cleaned out entirely. And you got to keep in mind, like, I was making commission, but my real commissions really didn't start coming in until like 2024, like really until like the end of 2023, 2024. That was when I was really like, okay, I'm making like at least at a minimum like 10 grand a month from government contracting. So he gave me a hefty quote. So I gave him half up front. Now get this. So my thought process, which you see here in step number 8, was I was like, okay, I'll give this guy half. Worst comes to worst, if you launch this website and nobody signs up and then I'm in the hole, fine, I'll eat it. But I was like, let me launch this website without even creating the course content and see if there's even a market for this, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So then I had to source images, and I wrote all the marketing copy for the website itself. Like, me and this guy, we were literally on the phone probably 2 to 3 hours a day over the course of like a week, just grinding. So I had to create the website first, because people already knew who I was. And that was a complaint that I had realized that I was getting quite a bit, was people were like, you have no website, like you don't look official. Like I had already been on podcasts, and word of mouth was spreading in the industry. So people knew of me, but they're just like, this guy has no website. So I had to like make myself legit. And I'm a big believer in not making a website until you absolutely need to, because it's a stupid cost, right? Like, figure out if the idea works and get proof of concept before you start taking on expenses. But I already was knowing that I had to make a website at that time. So that was like my priority, was create the website. So I sourced the images, and then I was writing marketing copy, and we were like, if you go on my website now, all that marketing copy that I wrote is actually still there, and go catch it now because it's actually about to change. The website's going to change. Prices are going to change. Everything's going to change. So go look at it now, and get in while you fit in, because yesterday's price is not today's price. But with that being said, I ended up getting a professional headshot, and then I created a logo to throw on the website. And then whenever you're creating something, when you're essentially selling yourself or like your services, have a picture of yourself on there, because it makes you seem more trustworthy. But when there's a website and then there's no picture and people can't see what you look like or who you are, people become apprehensive. So then after I sent the logo to my web developer, I started posting on LinkedIn and marketing the bootcamp. So at this point in time, I was already speaking on podcasts. People already knew who I was. And I was getting requests on LinkedIn, but I wasn't really taking it seriously. I was just like, whatever, it's LinkedIn. Like, I'm 21. To me, Instagram is popping. Why do I care about LinkedIn? But LinkedIn, honestly, before I started this channel and doing like more podcasts, is where I got most of my leads. So I started posting a lot on LinkedIn and then marketing our bootcamp. And I started telling people, hey, listen, I'm going to be teaching this. You can't even sign up for it yet, but I'm just letting you know eventually this is going to happen. So I started marketing, and it was free marketing. People knew who I was, and people were liking it, sharing it, reposting it, just because of, me as a person, right? Like I made sure that I had substance before I did that. I had proof of concept. People knew of me. People knew that I was helping companies already win contracts, right? So that market, like when you build a business, you're going to generate sales from one of three ways. Either you're going to have a really, really good product and shit marketing, which is where I was at that point in time. And even still now, I have a great product and shit marketing, which is why I'm doing YouTube. You're going to have a shitty product, but phenomenal marketing. So people will buy because marketing sells. Or you're going to get to the point where I'm going to be at the end of this year, where I have a great product and great marketing. That's how I was making money. But I was a phenomenal product. I just had shit marketing. But because the product was so damn good, it was selling itself. So then the next thing that I did was I created a business bank account, and I registered with a payment processor. So initially I was using Wave to process my payments when I would invoice companies to pay me. And Wave freaking sucked because I couldn't use it online. And I was literally having people like Zelle me, like to conduct these transactions. And then I was like, okay, I got to make something shake here. So then I opened up a checking and a savings account for my business, because I already had the LLC. I just didn't do anything with the account. Excuse me. It's a long day. Shout out your boy. I passed my multi-engine written exam today. So I'm a bit tired, but I created my business bank account, and then I registered with Stripe, which is the current payment processor that I'm using now. And they're actually holding about $10,000 of my money right now. That's just how it goes when you're running a business. And then people, that's just how it goes when you're running a business. Anyways, so I had my bank account, and then I registered with a payment processor. So at this point, I had a website. People knew what I looked like. And then I was also doing my marketing. I had a pro headshot. Then I had a way to receive the money and store the money, as well as conduct the transactions. So at this point, the only thing that was left was to launch the website. Now, I launched the website and I created the link for people to sign up, but I hadn't even created the course content yet. Mind you, I already knew what I was going to say because I had been teaching people for almost a year at this point, and I had already worked with like about 12 to 15 companies. So I knew what startups needed to know. And then there was a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't teach them, but that I just knew from my straight up experience in the government contracting world. So I was just like, all right, worst comes to worst, I try this, it absolutely fucking flops, and then I just refund everybody their money and I move on with my life. But I ended up launching the website, and then I think I made like $8,000 within like 3 days of me launching the website. And then I was like, holy crap, like this is legit. This is legit. And then I remember that month, my birthday month, was the first time I met the like 2 days before I turned 21. And mind you, my birthday is July 11th. So like on like July 7th or something like that, I had already made $10,000 for the month, and it hit me. And I was like, I'm 20 years old making $10,000 a month. What the heck? But with that came a lot of fear, because then it's like, okay, I'm making $8,000 a month and I'm in school. I really did not care for school. And I always told my parents, I was like, if I could go all in on government contracting in my business, like I will take this thing and I will blow it out of the water. But it's scary. That's a scary decision when you're like, okay, am I going to drop out of college or am I going to pursue this? And then it's also like, I'm now on the hook for $8,000. People have given me $8,000. I need to create $8,000 worth of content for them. So that was like a scary ass moment. It was filled with like a whole bunch of like great emotions. And I had used my commission a couple months earlier to pay for me and my homies to go on this trip to the Dominican Republic. And I rented out a villa and I paid for everybody. I took care of everything. But while I was on that trip, I was kind of stressing because like money's like starting to roll in while I'm like on the trip. And I'm just like, these people are paying me $10,000 and I literally have nothing to give. Like there is no course and they're paying for a course, but there isn't one. So now when I get back to the States, I have to create some shit. So I was freaking out. But you guys know the story. You know about how that went, which is the reason why I've been blessed to be on all these podcasts and speak at these events and conferences and stuff. I created the course. And it went phenomenal. It was 3 days. People left rave reviews, and I actually recorded all of it. So I held it via Zoom, and then I recorded it, and then I chopped everything up. And I created informational documents to go along with the course. And literally, once I did that, I was like, okay, now I conducted my boot camp, but then I had a recorded version of the course, which I was able to just throw up on my website. And I was like, hey, listen, if you didn't make it to the boot camp for like a couple $100 less, you can get it, on our website. So that all transpired within a month. I ended up doing the first boot camp like August 1st to the 2nd. So I created the website. It launched July 11th, and then people had about 20 days from July 11th to the end of July at midnight. They signed up. I taught the course, whatever the first weekend of August was, and I had made myself about I think 11 or 12 grand at that point in time. And then I just reinvested all of that into the business, and I went absolutely balls to the wall. And I took this thing and ran with it. And now it is a $250,000 business. I'm 21. I'm making more money than I would if I was a freaking like multi-year captain at a regional. And I'm still able to bid on contracts. I'm still winning contracts, still getting commission from contracts. So yeah, moral of the story is when something feels scary and you're looking over the ledge, that's when you have to jump. And if you're going through anything in life, like if you are grieving, if you're going through a breakup, if you're in a new city and you feel lonely, just create something, because everybody has ideas. Everybody has those things in their belly, like in their gut feeling, like in the pit of their stomach, that they're like, I wish I could really be doing this instead of what I'm actually doing. And all you have to do is create it. So you might as well just try it, because if it fails, worst comes to worst, you end up exactly in the same position that you are now. So that is just my message to you guys. That is how I built my company in 22 days. Like, comment, subscribe.